The man crumpled the paper into a ball and stuffs it into his mouth because he was so hungry trapped in the car. The man had come to steal something from the car, but the owner of the car locked him up. This thief used only a tennis ball. He easily broke into someone's luxury car. He packed up as he always does, and before he left, he peed in the back seat. The man was so proud of himself, but the next moment, he can't laugh anymore. The man is dumbfounded. He goes to the other 3 doors, but here too, the door cannot be opened. He didn't care about that. He kicked the glass of the car with his foot, but no matter how hard he kicked the glass, not even a single crack came out. Seeing someone passing by, the man quickly hides to prevent detection, because in this country, people hate thieves, and if they are caught, they will beat them to death. So the man doesn't dare let anyone find him. He takes out the tools in his car and tries to save himself, but smashing the glass doesn't work, so he tries to pry open the back seat door. He took the top handles off one by one. Only the inner door frame is exposed. The man tries to reach in and unlock the door, but his hand is cut by the sharp edge. Angry, he removes the floor mat, but the steel plates underneath were welded shut. The man was completely devastated. He pulls out his pistol and aims it at the glass of the car in front of him. The man never thought the car would be bulletproof. He took off his clothes and strangled the wound. Then, when a woman came over to fix her makeup, he called out to her for help, but the car was soundproofed. The woman can't hear his cries for help. His only chance to call for help was to call the police, but his phone dies before he can get through. The man spends the rest of the night in the car. The next day he wakes up with a dry mouth. The water he had brought with him had already been drunk. He could only quench his thirst by licking the fog from the car's glass. He then continues to chisel at the door of the car. That's when the owner of the car calls him on the phone. The man pressed the answer button. The owner first introduced himself to him. Then he said that the car had been stolen 28 times. The man was the 29th person to steal the car, but none of them had escaped his grasp because the car was equipped with an alarm. As soon as the car was broken into, the owner gets a message. He can lock the doors remotely. The car is bulletproof and soundproof. The glass is also polarized. You can't see inside from the outside. A man would starve to death in here or die of thirst, even if he survives. There's 120 liters of petrol waiting for him in the boot, which means the owner could have turned the car into a powerful bomb at any time. The owner called him and asked him if his son had been the thief. What would he have done? The man replied that he didn't know, and he was punished by the owner. The owner remotely turns on the air conditioning and turns the temperature down. The man is shivering from the cold. He puts on his clothes and uses a floor mat to block the air vents, but this doesn't help much. The man's lips turn blue from the cold. The owner finally turns off the air conditioning. He calls the man on the phone. The same question he had asked earlier. If the man's son had become a thief, what would he do then? The man didn't dare say he didn't know. This time his answer was to take his son to the police. The owner of the car was still not satisfied, but he didn't bother the man again. Finally a chance to plan his escape. Fortunately, a policeman arrived at the car at that moment. The man quickly banged on the car window and called for help, but the policeman just looked at the car for a few moments. He put a ticket on the car and left. This convinced the man that he couldn't see inside from the outside. He was desperate, but he didn't want to die like this. The man had a fever. The owner of the car who knew about this seemed very kind. After turning on the hot air in the car, the man passed out from the heat. In a daze, the man heard. The owner of the car was talking about his hatred for the thief. The owner and his family had been harassed by the thief numerous times. Thieves are like nasty flies that can't be shaken off, even though there are fly extinguishers all over the streets. But the flies still find their way in. The man really regretted it. If he had been given another chance, he would never have become a thief. It was on the afternoon of the 3rd day. Another thief arrived at the car ready to break it in. The man was excited. He expected the thief to come quickly and successfully, but before the other man could open the door, he was found and dragged aside. The thief was beaten up. The man didn't know whether to pity the thief or himself. He couldn't hold out any longer. By the 4th day, the man's eyes were already dazed. He was on the verge of death. The owner feels that the man is dying, so he called him again. But this time, the owner didn't take him. Instead, he told him that there was a chocolate hidden behind the front panel of the car. With this piece of chocolate, the man finally regained some strength. He continued to pry the door open, but the owner called him again. The owner gave the man's girlfriend's name exactly. This made the man furious. It's not enough that the owner is after him. He even tried to hit on his girlfriend. The man is angry, bitter and remorseful. He asks the owner why he did this to him. Who knew that the owner would say, "This is the best place for a murderer like him." It seemed that God had felt his remorse. The car started that night, although the man could not step on the accelerator, but he could reverse the car and wreck it. The moment the airbag popped, he knew he was saved. A minute later the man got out of the back window of the car. He stumbles to the convenience store. He grabbed some water and poured it into his stomach. Then he shoved a burger into his mouth. The convenience store owner comes and asks him to pay, but the man didn't care about him. It was all a dream he had just had. God won't give him a chance to be a man of his sins, because as he lives, more people will die. The man breathes heavily. At this point, the owner of the car, who had been trapping him, finally showed himself. He got in and sprayed the car with alcohol. Then he cleaned the wound on the man's leg while the owner was on the phone. The man shot him and escaped, but his shot didn't hit the owner. He was soon taken back into the car. Luckily, a police officer saw the scene. It wasn't long before the owner of the car was surrounded by them. Although the man was a criminal, but if the owner of the car kills him, the owner would be a criminal too. The officer went up to the owner and advised him there was no need to ruin himself for a bad man. He seemed to be convinced. The owner finally let go of the man, but he didn't raise his hands in surrender. Instead, he got into the car. He took his phone out and put it on the roof of the car. He saw the countdown on it. The officer feels bad. The black smoke and flames are the silent cries of the car's owner. The man was taken away by the police, but the next day he was released by the police. The owner tried to wake up the law of the land with his life, but in front of some big bird. He's a flying insect who seems so insignificant. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this on Recap Next.